And CNN senior political analyst and senior editor at The Atlantic, Ron Brownstein, and Washington Post columnist Josh Rogin. He's the author of Chaos Under Heaven, Trump, Xi, and the Battle for the 21st Century. Nice to see you both this morning. So, Ron, as we're waiting to hear from Secretary Blinken, get his take, right? We heard a little bit there from Stephen Zhang about what's being said in China domestically. What are you listening for? What will make this meeting a quote-unquote success, even though we're talking about this very low bar? Yeah. For the U.S.?
You know, it's one of those cases where success is preventing things from getting worse, right? There has been a spiral in U.S. China relations. I'm thinking about the long arc of this. I mean, you know, I remember covering around 2000, the Bill Clinton administration. There was a broad bipartisan view that integrating China more closely into the global economic system would moderate their behavior, both internationally and domestically. I mean, 4/5 of the Senate Republicans voted to give China most permanent, most favored nation trading status. Fast forward, 20 years later, and now there's a broad bipartisan consensus on a tougher posture toward China, including decoupling our economies as much as possible. That points toward a confrontational, adversarial future, I think, and finding some way to prevent that downward spiral with the parallel responses in China, I think that is the definition of success.
Yeah. Josh, a similar question to you. What will you be looking for to determine if the U.S. has created, as members of the administration have said, that floor? And will you see it today?
Right. Well, I'll be very curious to see what specific agreements that Secretary Blinken mentions in his press conference. We can expect them to be on sort of the most low-hanging fruit, counter narcotics, maybe commercial flights, that kind of thing. If he gets a couple of Americans home, that would be great, too. So there's no doubt that there's an interest in preventing the relationship from getting worse than it is. But I think the problem really is that still the United States and China do not agree on why it is, as Ron just said, that relations have gotten so bad in the 20 years since we had a great relationship with China. I think some would say that that's because of some sort of U.S. Bipartisan hawkish consensus, but I think it's actually more because China went a different way, because since Xi Jinping took power in 2013, they decided that engagement wasn't the path that they wanted, and they amped up their economic aggression and military expansion and started a genocide and started menacing Taiwan. And I don't think we're going to hear any overlap between Blinken and his Chinese counterparts on any of those issues, and that's why I think this is only really a speed bump, as the relationship is going to continue to get worse. And not because of Congress hawkishness, but because the Chinese government is now presenting a new face to the world and to the United States, which is, don't tell us anything about Taiwan, don't tell us anything about the Uyghurs. If you want to have good relations, then you have to have them on our terms. But I think it's going to be hard for any U.S. president to accept those terms, and that's the fundamental problem that Blinken's trip will fail to solve.
So then, Ron, how does Biden get over that?
Yeah, look, I think Josh is right that Xi's China, there's a limit to how positive the relationship for any U.S. president is going to be. But there's a lot of space between that and an endless downward spiral. And the question is whether you can prevent this from becoming, in effect, a new Cold War, recognizing the limits of how much we are going to agree with the direction that they're on. And I think that is where Biden is. I mean, I think there is still a meaningful space between how Biden views this relationship more of a competition than, say, Trump and some of the other Republicans who view it more flat-out adversarial. In many ways, it's an echo of the 1950s, when you had Republicans arguing for disengaging from Europe and focusing more on confronting China. I think we are moving back into that. So there is still, I think, a meaningful space between what Biden envisions and what I think Trump, DeSantis, and others might have in mind.
Hey, Josh, go ahead.
I would just say that, while I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of that, I think it's a very Washington-centric view of the problem. And as I travel around Asia, I find something different, which is that Japan, the Philippines, South Korea, Australia, India, these are not countries that are worried about China's threat to them because of some Washington consensus. They're worried about it because China's a threat to them. And, if we always look at it as, what can Biden and Washington do to improve U.S.-China relations, we're playing into their trap. We're playing into their frame, which is that the U.S. is the problem and not China. But the demand signal is coming from the region, and there are a lot of countries around the world that have the same problem with an aggressive China that's not following the rules of the road, that's using its power in malign ways and using its influence to control other countries' economies. And so I just think we just need to remember here that it's really not all about us. It's not real. Good U.S.-China relations are great, but that's not the goal of U.S.-China policy. The goal of U.S.-China policy is to work with our friends and allies and partners to protect ourselves from the actual threat that China's aggression presents as China rises. And if China wants to play ball on any of that, that would be great. But that's not really just about Tony Blinken. It's about making sure that China understands that it can have a peaceful rise, but not on any terms, and not while it continues to be aggressive and genocidal and threatening the region and the world.
Yeah, interestingly enough, H.R. McMaster, former President Trump's national security advisor, said over the weekend that Blinken's trip could project a degree of weakness by going and saying that we are now working on China's terms. We'll get into that into greater detail. Ron, Josh.